Welcome to the Get Out In It podcast, keeping our mental and physical well-being balanced by heading out into nature and doing stuff.
The activity isn't important. Walk, run, hike, bike, whatever it is, just find something you enjoy and get out in it. The point of this podcast is to show how ordinary people can achieve extraordinary levels of health and fitness.
Out here, we'll share informal, inclusive advice for anyone trying to improve their mental and physical well-being, based on our own experiences and professional knowledge from our special guests.
So let's lace up and get out in it. All right, do it again, but do it properly. Stop fucking up.
And here we are. Welcome to episode 10, and what a week it has been. How are you, Maria Herring?
Pretty good, James Bale. It's at the end of the week, and it's been a long week, so I am so happy to be here. How are you? How was your week?
Yeah, not too bad. Things are really getting more positive in my world at the moment.
Love that for you.
As everyone knows and is getting very bored of hearing, I am progressing through a hip injury at the moment. I haven't been able to train properly, but I've got a real light at the end of the tunnel at the moment through multiple interventions through different physiotherapists. But we will get into that a little bit later when we do the Let's Be Honest section at the end. Right now, I want to know what you've done this week to get out in it.
Got out in it. Oh, I've done so many things. It's been a really, really busy week. So as well as my regular training, I've been doing all sorts of other get out in it stuff. I've been on my bike a lot, done a lot of cycling around the Mont d'Or to get to my students. So that was nice. And actually this week it's been a lot cooler than it has been, which has been nice. We haven't had the blaring sun, so it's been much, much better to be outdoors and active this week. But one thing that was really, really cool, I did my speeds on Tuesday, and I sent you the deets. Wasn't I fast?
You did indeed, yeah. You sent those details across, and the increase in speed is very, very impressive. You're down in the 3-something per kilometer now, which we haven't seen before.
No,
and
I was really surprised.
Yeah, the feeling after that must have been amazing.
It was good. It was such a good morale booster because, I think just because of busy end of term stuff and not having my fixed training schedule, I've been doing my training, but at different times, and it's kind of thrown me it's messed with my head a little bit. So for some reason, I don't feel like I'm doing my training, even though I am. It's just at different times. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a change of routine is always a bit of a mind fuck.
Yeah, it's throwing me for 6. And so because I feel like I haven't been doing my training properly, when I went to do my speeds on Tuesday evening, I was like, oh, it's going to suck. I'm going to be absolutely rubbish at the speeds. And then I wasn't. I was my fastest ever. And I was like, yeah, that's wicked.
It's exactly the same principle as when you're someone who's incredibly healthy with your diet, and then you have one massive day where you eat a load of food and you think, oh, I've ruined everything. The next day I'm going to weigh loads more, and you weigh yourself and there's no real difference, because ultimately these tiny changes don't make a huge amount of difference. It's accumulation of effort over time that is the key.
Yeah, so I was quite chuffed with that. So that was my best getting out in it moment this week. It was my speeds, which is random because normally I hate Tuesday interval day, but it was really, really cool. But enough about me. How about you? What have you done this week to get out in it?
Well, I'm a bit more mobile than I was. I can walk now, and I'm getting around. I can go for the odd walk here and there.
Do you still need sticks?
No, I'm not walking with the stick anymore, which is nice. And my hip isn't doing that freezing, stiffening thing when I try and move for the first time after a period of not moving. And so that's good. But the main thing for me is that I'm really starting to see progress in the recovery.
Nice.
And I feel that's unshackled my brain from the slightly low point I was at. And I can see a light at the end of the tunnel. So for me, my main key takeaway this week is that, I may not be doing quite as much getting out in it as I'd like to right now, but I can see that time where I can do it again in the future. And I'm here for it.
Nice. Love that for you.
Now, we've got a really, really interesting chat coming up, haven't we, with someone that I've known of for a long time, but is new to you. And
brand new person for me. Mm-hmm.
Indeed that. And they've got some history in sport, some history in activity, some history in exploration, and they've got a hell of an adventure they're going to be going on very, very soon.
Yeah, this is going to be such a wicked hike and a chat. I'm so up for this right now.
So should we just get our boots on and go for a hike and a chat?
Let's go and chat it up with John.
Getting into it. So this week, we are lucky to be joined by John Galloway. Now, I know John because he was the co-host of my favorite pro cycling podcast of all time, the Velocast. I spent many hours with John and Scott talking me through the weekly happenings in the sport I follow most closely. In terms of activity, he's been a climber, a postie, a cyclist, and a frequent dog walker in the stunning Scottish countryside. Now retired from podcasting at the age of 60, John is getting back into shape. Great to have you on, John. How's things?
Things are very, very good. I've forgotten how to work a microphone, so you'll have to keep me right, James. But yeah, at 60, we've just had our first, our son and his partner have just had their first daughter, our first grandchild.
Oh, congratulations.
And I think it's a good time to think about getting fit because it's been 20 years since I was properly fit. And I'm finding quite a lot changes when you're 20 years older than the last time you trained.
I bet it does. I bet it does. We like to start each interview on this podcast with a simple question. What have you done this week to get out in it?
I've been out on my gravel bike. As you say, I live in the Scottish borders, which is a mecca for cycling of all kinds, road cycling. The mountain bike world championships is here. We'll be going to see Mathieu van der Poel riding his mountain bike in August. There's probably about 100 miles of gravel within half a mile of my house. So, I mean, it is heaven for a bicycle. So I've been out on the gravel bike. I've been walking Skye. If you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I mean, it's basically the dog's account either way.
She's beautiful.
Mostly pictures of dog walking. And just recently, I've been getting back into resistance training. So I've been to the gym 3 times this week. So it's tiring, but it's beginning to be fun again. You know, that first hurdle of actually getting started was a biggie, but I'm back in the groove.
I wish I had 100 miles of gravel tracks available to me. I'm less of a cyclist nowadays because my fear of the roads has just got more and more and more as I get older, and I can't be abiding British roads or British traffic right now.
I don't blame you. I mean, you know, I'd stopped riding for about a year, 2 years ago. I mean, I had a kind of a hiccupy start back to fitness a couple of years ago. Had an argument with a bus, and I can't face the road now, which is why I'm so lucky to live where I am. I can get out and, you know, within a few hundred yards, I'm off the road and away from traffic.
So before we get into how you're approaching your return to fitness right now, let's have a chat about your history with exercise and the outdoors. Where did it begin for you, and what drove the desire to be active when younger?
I didn't have a desire to be active when I was young. I was a very lethargic and lazy child who hung about in the house and read a lot of books. And I remember a geography teacher, Mr. Wolverton, at Liberton High School, where I went to school, took us on a weekend where we were hill walking. We went up a hill called Schiehallion, which was my first Munro, and I slogged up it, wheezing like a dog. I mean, just terrible. And then we went rock climbing at a local crag called Choprain Law. Went up I think it was a VDIF. It wasn't anything hard at all. And suddenly I was hooked. You know, I'd found that one thing that excited a passion in me, and it was the mountains. Started walking with Ailsa, started climbing with school friends, had a bit of a ball. And then one day my mate Andy beat me home on his bicycle when I was in the bus after we'd been out in the town. And I thought, oh, that's quite exciting. I'll get a bike. Got the bike to stay fit for climbing. And then went to work in a bike shop, and everybody was racing there. And of course, when you're in an environment where that passion is shared, where everybody's doing the same thing, you can't help but get involved. So that's when I started racing. And for about 15 years, my life was basically taken over by 3 things. One is playing guitar. The other one is climbing. And the third, of course, is cycling. Now, my climber's upper body meant that when it came to hills, not impressive. You know, I could go very, very fast on the flat, but when it went uphill, people who I would crush in a flat time trial just took bits out of me. But time trialing was something that I really enjoyed. So that was basically my life for probably getting on for 20 years, actually.
Nice. So what was it about the countryside that made you want to climb and cycle around it? Because you said you're from Scotland, and we can hear that you're from Scotland. So and I love hiking as well. Hiking is my jam here in France. So what is it for you about the countryside where you were that made you want to explore?
It's really difficult to express it. You start to get a bit pretentious and sound all spiritual and that sort of thing. But there is something
Feel
about
free
the
to be
outside.
pretentious and spiritual, mate. Our audience love it.
No, there is something about the outside, particularly when you're on top of a hill, on top of Ben Hope in the far north of Scotland, and you're on a big mountain, and there's the juxtaposition between the coast, the sea, and you're high up. There is definitely something about getting the best out of yourself. You have to work for the reward. And I think that's it. But also, it just gives you time to think. It both takes you out of yourself, getting you involved in the stunning scenery that you're seeing, but it also gives you time to contemplate and think about, who you are, your place in the world. So the outdoors, I think, is just essential for everybody, not just to get, vitamin D from the sunshine, but just to spend time with yourself. As far as rock goes, there is a great joy in moving in rock. Children love climbing, and I think it's just play. It's play with slightly higher stakes often, but it is just, going on the climbing frame at school. It's the same thing. You just move your hands and your legs and you manage to climb something, and that's quite magical.
Did you do, when you climb, is it free climbing, or do you have all the harnesses and stuff on?
I've done both. I've done a bit of soloing, not for a very long time. I don't really understand the indoor wall thing. That seems to be what's really popular just now, and a lot of people love it and get very, very strong doing it. But for me, it was always part of that being outside, always like walking. So yeah, often I would go climbing with my wife, Elsa, who was a better climber than me, if I'm honest, and we'd be roped up and harnessed and climb together. But also there is a joy in the free movement and not having a rope on. But you have to be very careful and in the right mindset for that. Because if you start worrying about it, that's a
Game
bad
over.
place to be.
Yeah,
exactly.
I've never climbed indoors or outdoors. I've done a lot of sort of bouldering because I live on Dartmoor, as you probably know. So a lot of bouldering, missioning around, playing, but nothing that I would ever feel I could qualify as climbing. Do you think when you take it to that point, when you are, you feel like, I suppose it's the difference between being slightly in danger and not being slightly in danger, maybe? Do you think that brings a greater connection to the place that you're in?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the management of risk is one of the joys of climbing. You're aware of the risk, but you're using your ability, your judgment to manage it, to control it, and that's hugely rewarding. If you're on a climb where everything's easy, then there's fun to be had. One of the things I'm really looking forward to now as I get older is going back and doing the big easy climbs that we dismissed as too easy, when we were young tigers. That's something I'm really looking forward to. But if you go up a climb and there's no challenge, it's fun, but it's not as good as something where you've been on the very edge, not necessarily a danger, but maybe even just a physical ability for bouldering, where bouldering is inherently safe. But if you pull off something that is just at the very limit of your ability, it's hugely rewarding. But the management of risk is definitely part of the game.
And how far did you take it? Did you get to a point where you were climbing at the limit of your ability, or did you ever go to a point where you were like, actually, this is where I want to be. I don't want to go any further?
I was limited by my physical talent. There are people who are far, far better climbers than me, but I certainly took it to the limit of what I was capable of. If you're not falling off from time to time when it's safe to do so, then you're not trying hard enough. Just as in the way, if you're running a triathlon or a time trial, if you don't have races where you push it too far, you never know your limit. You've got to blow up to know where your limit is. And it's like that with climbing. So yeah, I took it as far as I was able. And I wouldn't change a thing. I've got a lot of injuries because of it and because of cycling. But that's a youth well spent. You've got to have some injuries to show.
Absolutely. What kind of fitness specifically does it require?
Mostly forearm strength for pure climbing. Everybody talks about the back and all that kind of thing. It's all about finger strength, which comes from the forearms. So I spent a lot of time training that. For mountaineering, which is what I really enjoyed, because that's a combination of the technical climbing and the hiking. that we talked about, it's a huge amount of aerobic fitness. You might have a 14-hour day where your pulse is, well over 100 for most of that day. So you have to have the endurance, and that's where cycling came in. Cycling's great for endurance without impact. So I think proper mountaineering, where you're out for a long day doing technical climbs, having to get mentally involved to manage the risk and that kind of thing, is a whole body exercise. You have to have a very high level of fitness. And the best climbers train, you know, if you look now, there are loads of books about training for alpine climbing, training for rock climbing, and it's a completely different game now, as is cycling. If you look at the sophistication with power meters and, analysis of pedal stroke and all that kind of thing, compared to 20 years ago, the fittest climbers now are just unbelievably fit. Climbing
the
8,000
speed climbers
meters.
blow my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mental. Yeah.
People like Uli Steck, who died actually a few years ago, climbing the north face of the Eiger in a couple of hours. It's just insane.
Yeah.
So what's the
No, go ahead. I was just going to say something about the Free Solo film that I watched that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Actually made me die a bit inside that film.
That was
Alex
an insane
Honnold.
film.
Yeah, that's the one. Have you brought yourself to watch it yet? Because I remember longer ago you were saying I can't bring myself to watch that film.
I have watched it actually, and you'll probably get the explicit tag for this, but my scrotum disappeared into my stomach watching that film.
Same here. When I was watching that film, because I'd never paid attention to climbing, it wasn't a sport I'd ever done, and I always assumed that any sport you do, inherently, most of the time, you're safe. I didn't think people did stuff that was that unsafe. And so when I watched it, it blew my mind how unsafe he was.
Yeah.
But in control. And it was just insane.
Oh, it made me feel sick. Yeah. It was quite incredible. I've only done indoor climbing on walls and stuff. But for me, the best part, because all in harness and stuff, for me, the best part was falling off at the top and just having the harness kind of gently lower me down. I liked that kind of free fall, but safe free fall.
It's funny, actually. More climbers die coming down than going up.
Do they? Well, I never knew that. There we go.
Because you tend to relax and your concentration goes. Great Scottish climbers. There's a great Scottish climber called Tom Patey. Very hard, incredibly clever man. Just made a mistake abseiling off a sea stack and was gone.
Oh my God!
So you have to pay attention coming off the climb as well. It's not a successful climb if you don't come back down.
This is true, yeah. So what's the most epic place, John, that you've ever climbed?
The best place I've ever climbed? I would say Chamonix in the Alps. Stunning. The Mont Blanc range is just breathtaking. Although Scott and I, during the time of the Velocast, went over there to meet someone, and I hadn't climbed in the Alps for about 20 years at that point. And I looked up at the skyline in the Chamonix Valley and thought, what the hell was I thinking? Because it's so high and it's so beautiful. And such a huge range of climbing. You can climb on ice there. Beautiful granite. The glaciers are just stunning, although I notice they're retreating quite a bit now. The Mer de Glace is much smaller than it was the first time I went over there. So yeah, I would say the Chamonix Valley, definitely.
Nice.
Stunning.
Good answer. I live really close to the Alps.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of hiking and trailing in the Alps. It's amazing.
Well, even if you're not technical climbing, if you go walking on the hills on the opposite side of the valley from Mont Blanc, the views are stunning. It's just beautiful. Absolutely
it's gorgeous
beautiful.
Around here. Yeah.
So is there something to be said for, if you can climb somewhere, you can get to places that maybe 99% of the population of the world don't get to see and don't get to stand? Is there something to be said for that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why when you look at, I don't know if you've seen the recent pictures of Everest, where there are queues, hundreds of meters long at 8,000 plus meters of height. That takes a lot of the shine off for me. I would rather go and climb something smaller and be on my own or with a small group of friends, because the connection you get. I'm planning a big trip next year and the person that I first thought of to do it with me is my old climbing partner, Bruce, who I've kept sporadically in touch with since we last tied in a rope together. But the connections you form with these people they're lifelong. Every time I talk to Bruce, it's as if we just talked yesterday. So it's a great way to forge friendships, and that isolation, that feeling that you're somewhere a bit different is definitely valuable.
So let's have a chat about cycling. Now,
Okay.
from what the intro you gave us to your cycling career, we're very similar in the sense that I've got quite a broad shoulder. I've never been a huge uphill. My uphill ability is not my best, but I can go flat out on a time trial. I love a time trial. You said you were brought into cycling because your mate bought a bike and raced your bus. How quickly from you getting your first bike did it take you to realize how much you loved it and then get to a point where you were actually racing bikes full on?
I knew I loved it pretty quickly. And I was probably 2 or 3 years just as a touring cyclist, going away on weekend trips, using the bike actually a lot to get into remote hills. Gravel bikes are basically what we used to call fast touring bikes. A fat tire, you can ride a Land Rover track, it's fine. I didn't start racing. I got my first bike when I was 19. I didn't start racing until I was 22. And I only started racing because I went to work in a bike shop and everybody was racing there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. But that feeling of being in the edge is of your physical ability, control. I think I might be revealing that I'm a bit of a control freak, actually. Controlling your own purpose on a time trial bike really hit something in me, and I just loved racing. And the good thing about a time trial is you get that feeling whether you're winning or whether you're 20th. You're racing against yourself. It's the same as climbing, actually. People who climb the hardest grades, which, you look at Alex Honnold, who we were talking about a minute ago, climbs almost unbelievably harder than I was able to. But the feeling that you get if you're at your limit on an easier grade is exactly the same as he's getting soloing El Cap. So the thing that's common about time trialing and climbing is whatever your level, as long as you're trying your hardest, it'll be hugely rewarding. And I would, if not for the accident that stopped me cycling, I think I'd still be time trialing now. I think it's something you can do, for as long as you can pedal a bike.
I absolutely love time trialing. And as I said a minute ago, I was never the best. I'm not the best at going up mountains. I love climbing mountains, but my ability to come to terms with how to time trial well really helped me understand how to get the best out of myself when I'm going uphill. Because I used to try and bounce up there like Alberto Contador, but that's not how I should climb. I should settle into my rhythm and just pace it up like a TT. And that's how I approached it. And I learned to love it.
Well, I mean, you'll have heard me say many times that if somebody like Filippo Ganna wins on stage, people shouldn't be surprised because climbing a hill is a time trial. If you're a superb time trialist, what you can do is control your effort, control your body, and climbing a hill fast is just that. It might not be the Pantani or the Contador, but if he's away and he's in with the chance of a mountain win, then his time trialing ability, his knowledge of his own body's limits, will get him over those hills. It's a fantastic discipline to teach you about yourself.
Absolutely. And where were the best moments? Do you remember the best moments in your time trialing racing days where you thought, bloody hell, I didn't know I could achieve that?
The first time I went fasted a 10, I remember thinking, oh, that was really rewarding. I really enjoyed hilly time trials, even though I was bad at them, actually, because they presented a challenge to me. There's a local race called the Tour of the Meldons, which is usually won in about 52 minutes. And I think the fastest I did it was about an hour, actually, 8 minutes behind the winner. But because I knew the road so well, and because I knew that I had to really manage my effort to get even that close to the winner, I always found that hugely rewarding. So I would say, actually, my best time in the Tour of the Meldons is probably my favourite time, and I was about halfway down the field. It's a strange sport. You're racing against yourself.
So you're talking about time trials. I mean, I ride a bike. That's my mode of transportation around here, but I don't do it as a sport. What is a time trial? Is it like a set distance or a set time for riding a certain distance?
British cycling is obsessed with time trials because mass start racing used to be illegal in Britain. So people would do time trials in black coats so the police didn't notice them and all that kind of stuff. But it's usually a set distance. The classic distances in Britain are 10, 25, 50, 100 and 12 hours. And it is just going as fast as you can over that set distance, and it's out and back. So a 10 would be 5 miles out and 5 miles back so that it balances the weather. There are also races like the Tour of the Meldons, which are not a standard distance, but they're over a classic course. So the Tour of the Mountains has been ridden for decades now. It's all about going as fast as you can, usually over set distances, but not always.
Okay.
And it's a really interesting exercise because it's not obvious how to do it well. You know, people start really fast and then die. People do negative splits where they go slower in the first half and then faster in the second half. And the other thing that appeals to me is it's a very techie sport. I know this appeals to you as well, James. You and I have talked all through about this.
Yeah.
You can spend an awful lot of money on a time trial bike trying to buy speed, but I'm slightly obsessed with the tech aspect, so that's a big bit of it for me too.
A athlete I used to manage and I'm still good friends with, actually up until very recently, I think it was only a month or so ago, held the 12-hour time trial record for the UK, and that was 325.5 miles at 523.84 kilometers in 12 hours. Yeah. That's Joe Skipper.
Yeah,
Joe Skipper, who we
absolutely insane distance. I've only done 1 12-hour, and it was enough.
It was indeed. Yeah, I can't imagine it. I think, I mean, I can do a 10, 12, 14-hour race, ultra marathon or Ironman, but just sitting in that time trial position for that long, I think my hip flexors and glutes would destroy me.
And that's all on like normal roads where there's cars and stuff.
Normal unclosed roads. Yeah, he chose a route. Yeah.
And I mean, if you time trial in England, it's a bit better in Scotland. A lot of them are on dual carriageways. So a lot of the times in England are very, very fast because you're drafting the cars. You know, it's the cars and lorries go past you. You get a draft from them.
Oh my God, I'd be way too scared to do that. Like it's bad enough over here with French drivers just going to work and stuff, because French drivers have no patience for a cyclist. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah,
there are people who will actually sit further out into the traffic to try and get a better draft, which just seems insane to me.
Yeah. When I did Land's End John O'Groats many years ago, I did a lot of dual carriageway riding. I just picked the fastest route and did it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get my head around doing that now. I don't know what I was thinking. I could not sit in that level of traffic anymore.
I do that. I mean, I used to commute to and from Edinburgh, which is 22 miles up the road, just as part of my training. So, you know, you're getting effectively 53 miles every day. And I just, whenever I drive that road now, I think, what the hell was I doing? You know, it's terrifying.
It is indeed. And the attitudes have changed, I think. I think things have got a little bit more aggressive. It's polarized now. The world seems to be teaching a certain group of people to hate cyclists. And that was leading into my next question, really. A lot has changed in the UK since you were racing. Do you think it's become easier or harder to get into the world of cycling, taking into account all of the pressures and all of the access?
I think it's harder to get into road cycling. I think the UK hates cyclists. It's that simple. I know lots of perfectly reasonable people who I would call friends, who hate cyclists. I mean, viscerally hate them. You see behaviour on the road that, you know, I've been talking to my daughter Sarah. She's wanting to get into triathlon, so she's talking about cycling, and we're choosing road bikes and that kind of thing. I find it very hard to recommend that she start cycling on the road because every day I see behaviour which, you know, you could end up dead. But we have to remember that thousands upon thousands of people cycle perfectly safely. So it might just be our old heads, James.
It might be. I think for me, it was when I had kids, I suddenly became very aware of my own mortality.
Yeah.
And hyper aware of it. And then a few incidents, because most, like you say, I would say 99% of people are perfectly fine on the road. There are a few that are making mistakes because they're not quite as educated as they should be. And then there are a few arseholes.
Yeah.
But it only takes one arsehole. And that's the end of your day. And it scares me a little bit. And that's, I suppose, why you've taken up gravel riding, because you can get away from the traffic and get off the roads and find wilderness that is secluded.
Exactly that. And, you know, to feel completely safe, which it takes a huge amount of the pressure off. When I tried to get back into fitness 4 years ago, I was constantly worried about what was behind me. You know, I would be buying a Garmin Vario now if I was going to ride on the road, just to know what was going to blog me in 30 seconds, you know, because I'm acutely aware of how much bad driving I see when I'm out on the road. Whereas in the gravel, once I'm off the road, the worst thing that can happen is you turn your wheel on a rock and go down, and that's your own fault. And I'm lucky enough to live in an area where the choices are virtually unlimited for gravel. I can think of, I regularly do 10 different routes with very, very little trail in common. So not everybody's so lucky and they have to get out on the road. But it's much harder, which I think is why mountain biking's taken off so much. Glen Tress, where the World Championships are going to be in August, I rode it first in 1990. And that was long before it became a bike park. But now there are 3,000 cars go there every weekend. It's the second biggest tourist attraction in Scotland after Edinburgh Castle. And I see so many people in mountain bikes, and I can understand why. You get the aerobic exercise, which is its own reward, but you also get the thrill of riding down some fantastic trails, and you don't have to worry about a bus running you over.
And it's good for strength as well, mountain biking and stability work as well. So that when you tried to get fit 4 years ago, you were planning on a cycle trip from Scotland, where you live, to China. Yep. Was it that experience you had with the roads that put you off that adventure?
It certainly was. I'm planning now to do that trip next year.
Awesome. I was going to ask if it was still going to happen.
What really killed it was COVID, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, fair enough.
That shut us all down. But I'm planning to do it next year. What really stopped me, though, and I think this is quite an important point. I was wondering why you wanted to talk to me about fitness, because I'm a pudgy podcaster. But I think an important point is the mistake I made 2 or 3 times when I tried to start training again was I tried to be who I had been. I tried to be the 40-year-old Joe. The background is I went over the handlebars. My elbow came out about 6 inches further up my arm than it should have been. And the elbow currently only has the radius left, the top of the ulnus going. And I damaged my hip, which dragged on for years until I had my hip replaced 5 years ago. So that's what stopped me doing exercise. And of course, I got depressed because everything that I defined myself by went away. I couldn't climb.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I couldn't play guitar. So ate the same amount as I'd been eating when I was doing 300 miles a week and got fat. So trying to get back to being who I was a mistake. Every time I got on a bike, I still thought I was a racing cyclist, but of course I wasn't. And that was a kind of self-defeating. It just became depressing that I couldn't be who I thought I was. And I stopped. And that happened 4 or 5 times. And the difference this time, and why I think it's important to have a coach and get some external input, is I'm not trying to be who I was. I'm trying to be the best that this version of John can be. I'm not going to do a fast time trial. I'm not going to be able to climb as hard as I used to. But at the age of 60, with some new priorities, I can age well and be as good as I'm capable of being just now, not 40-year-old John.
I love that.
Which is exactly when you say you wonder why we wanted to talk to you. I mean, that's the exact reason. Fitness isn't just for those people who are at the peak of whatever they're doing at whatever age they happen to be. It's for people that are trying to become the best version of what they're trying to be at that point. Yeah. So you've engaged a coach who I assume understands where you're at, understands what your goals are. What is the plan? How's that working out?
Well, last year, in fact, just before lockdown, actually, I engaged a coach, Caroline at CSC Coaching. And she's a friend and is an awesome coach because I'm slightly scared of her, which I think is quite important in a coach. And that really helped. But then lockdown stopped everything. So that didn't stop because I was trying to be who I wasn't. That stopped because lockdown just shut down everybody's life. And you probably know, because you've seen me moan about it on social media, James, I hate a turbo trainer. Yeah. I cannot be doing with sitting in a turbo trainer. So indoor training wasn't for me. So that's why I gave up that time. So I'll be going back to Caroline for the cycling thing. But what I realised when I was thinking about the China trip, thinking about goal setting and what I needed to achieve to make that trip happen, is that's not a performance exercise. That's a job. You just get up and you ride your bike for 5 hours a day. And you do that for 3 months and you get to China. And what you need for that is good general fitness before you need cycling specific fitness. So I went to a gym in Edinburgh called Lift Gym. The owner, Andy, is an amazing guy, actually, and talked to him. And what I've done before I start thinking about training for the bike is I'm into a series of general conditioning and strength.
Brilliant.
So that I've got the core fitness to support then, the time on the bike that I'll need.
Love
and
it.
The day after day rigor of riding to China. And I used to do a lot of time in the gym when I was a climber, just for strength. And I'd forgotten how much I enjoy it. But having someone with the knowledge, they've all big burly guys, but they've all got master's degrees and this, that, and the other to do with physiology. Having them work around the fact that my left elbow has half the joint. I've had my hip replaced, so my right leg, which used to be my strongest, is now about 30% weaker than my left. Them having knowledge to work around that means I can work with confidence. I'm not always worried about injuring myself. And the great thing about coming back, if people are thinking about coming back to fitness, is you get better really fast.
Yeah,
when you're fit, you have to do a lot to get an extra 5 watts of power from the bike.
Diminishing returns, isn't it? Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
When you're starting from scratch, the last 3 months has been a buzz, and that's just self-reinforcing. You get out and you get a buzz, and you get stronger, and you lift more weight. And I think that change of mindset from trying to be something that I'm not has made all the difference. And I think, I'm now in a situation where I'm going to go to the gym for the rest of my life again. And as you get older, that's fantastic because you need the strength. More people die falling over than getting run over by a bus. Balance and the strength is hugely important as you age.
It keeps coming back. Strength training. Yeah. It keeps coming back to that. Yeah. And I do struggle with it. I try so hard to keep going and doing my strength training to help my running and stuff. And I'm getting on a bit too. I'm in my mid-40s. So I know that the importance of it. But I need to find the joy.
3 times a week, every week, forever.
Yeah. And to be honest, part of it is it's changed now. I'm on the treadmill now. I'm back in the habit. But at the start, the fact that you're paying, however much you pay for a coach, I'm paying just shy of 200 quid a month actually, which it's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, but it makes you accountable.
Yeah.
There are so many sessions where I would not have turned up if I hadn't paid for them and knew somebody was waiting for me. Starting out again, that is such an important thing. It's such an important thing.
And it takes away the decision fatigue a little bit as well. It just means you don't have to think about what you're doing.
I don't have to think even about what exercises I'm doing. We just record it. They can review it before I go in, and they choose the next set of exercises that's most appropriate for where I was last time. And that accountability is really important. I remember chatting to Dave Smith, who was a cycling coach. He coached David Miller, and that's probably not a great thing to shout about, actually. But he's a high-level cycling coach, and he said even for friends, he charged them money because that's part of the equation. Is the fact that you're invested in it, literally invested in it, means you're far more likely to stick to the program.
It's the difference between buying a pint and being given a pint, isn't it?
Yeah,
it feels more valuable. So, have you planned this trip to China? How long is it going to take you? Have you sorted out the logistics of it? Is Brexit going to be a problem? All these questions I've got for that trip.
Yes, I have planned it. The logistics is interesting. There are bits that are difficult. You can't get through Iran. So you have to take a ferry across the Caspian Sea from Azerbaijan. Brexit, I've talked to a few folk, and technically it should be difficult because we don't have the freedom of movement we used to. But in practice, once you're in Europe, the borders are basically invisible anyway.
On a bike, so, 100%.
Yeah, Europe's not going to be a problem. The bit that I'm currently still a bit sketchy on is the stands, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, and where to get into China. The great thing about having a son in China who's married to a Chinese national is we now have extended family visit visas. So I can get into China at any point and stay for 3 months.
Oh, brilliant.
So that takes
That's
a
handy.
big worry. Yeah, it takes a big worry away. But the logical place to go in is Xinjiang, which is, of course, where the Uyghurs are being treated extremely poorly by the Chinese government, and I'm not sure I want to ride through there. But yeah, it's worked out, and it's going to take just shy of 3 months.
Nice.
Okay.
Whereabouts are you going to end up? Because I used to live in China. I used to live in Chongqing, so I'm
Oh.
interested. Yeah.
Alex's wife's from Chongqing.
Is she?
Yeah,
Is she?
Alex worked in Chongqing for 3 years, so I know Chongqing extremely well.
Nice. I
And
loved the food there because it was super spicy.
Oh
The
God,
food is
yes.
amazing.
I crave the food so much. And currently, Alex got a new job, and they've moved to Chengdu,
Chengdu,
which
yeah.
is my favourite Chinese city, even before Alex lived there.
It's really, really nice down there. Yeah.
So chilled. It's a great place, and again, good spicy food.
Yes.
But Chongqing, yes, I know extremely well. The only place actually in China where they don't cycle because it's too hilly.
Interesting. I mean, I never cycled around there anyway because the level of traffic was mental.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I used to live just outside of Chongqing in a well, they called it a little village. It was called Hechuan, but there was like over 1 million inhabitants. It was crazy place to live. But yeah, I love China.
Yeah, we spent just 2 months ago. We spent 4 days in Chongqing meeting Ling Ling's family, and I've got a little bit of Mandarin, but Chongqinghua is just insane.
It's a completely different language. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had no idea what anybody was saying at any point, but we had a good time. Lots of hot pot.
Oh my God, the hot pot. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, no! You've got me salivating now.
I remember when the Velocast ended, how quickly your Twitter feed went from cycling to just guitars and Chinese food.
Yeah,
that was almost overnight. It was almost overnight.
We have this is completely irrelevant to fitness, but we have a supply of hot pot bricks that we brought back from Chongqing this time.
Nice.
So we can sneak them into stir fries and stuff to get some proper flavour.
Brilliant.
Love it.
So is that where you're going to end up? You're going to end up where your son now lives?
Yeah, I'm going to end up in Chengdu.
Nice. Perfect.
Which is we'll enter in at a place called Jiangye, which is where Alex was for the first year, which is in the far northwest. And unfortunately, there appears to be a mountain range between there and Chengdu, but we'll cope.
And you'll have company on this ride, or you're doing it solo? And will you have pre-booked accommodation, or will you be kind of winging it and bike packing?
Bike packing,
nice.
cheap hotels and tents, and I'm hoping to have company for most of it. The problem is most people can't get 3 months off. But I'm basically retired now. I've got a part-time job that gets me out of the house, but I'll just stop that and disappear for 3 months. So, if you fancy coming along for a week or two, you're welcome.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm happy to join you for a little bit through Europe, 100%. And are there milestones in your coaching plan that are going to get you there? Things that you say, like, I need to be able to achieve this by this point. I need to be feeling like this at this point. What are the goals to get you to that start line?
Basically time. Time on the bike is what I need to work up to. Although I talked to Christine and Steve, who were long-term listeners of the Velocast, a couple who rode around the world, and they recommended not training at all and just getting out there and riding their bike, because that way you don't get jaded. You actually ride into the trip. So they just bought a couple of beautiful bikes and disappeared for 2 years. There's an element of that. But the goals I've set myself are basically time on the bike. I'm not worrying about speed, because even if I'm only going at 14 or 15 miles an hour, 5 or 6 hours at 15 miles an hour gets you a fair bit down the road. You don't have to go fast. And I've got some private goals that I've set about things I want to climb to get out. But other than that, it's just the goals that the coach gives me. I just do what I'm told. And that takes away that decision paralysis that you were talking about, James. Having that external input. I'm not tuning a Ferrari. I'm getting a tractor running again. So it's not like I have to hit 320 watts by the end of the month. But knowing myself, and I mean, you've talked to me often, James, but you know me well enough. I suspect that once I get to a certain level, it'll start to get a bit fanatical again. But we're not there yet. I'm still just general fitness.
Are you enjoying it right now? You said you're getting a buzz out of the gym. Are you enjoying the journey?
Absolutely loving it. And that's the difference. As ever, it was horrible starting again, but you get to a stage where you embrace pain's the wrong way to do it, but there is something nice about putting a bar on your shoulders and thinking, there's no bloody way I'm going to get down and back up with that and managing to pull it off. That challenge is something that's always rewarding. And also the endorphins. Absolutely the endorphins. I really didn't realize how much I'd missed that. That sitting in the bath with a cup of tea and some toast after a long bike ride is one of the best feelings that you can get in your life. Where you've gone just that wee bit too far or pushed just that wee bit too hard and you're really pleased with yourself. That's a huge reward.
And I think there's something to be said for DOMs as well. I quite enjoy the pain of DOMs a couple of days later if I know I've done, because I do long distance running. And if I've had a long run on the Sunday and then on the Tuesday my legs don't work properly and my thighs are burning, I love that. There is something to be said for pain.
Well, it's funny. I mean, my eldest boy, Angus, who's just had wee Isabel, or Misha, his partner's just had wee Isabel. He just stood there, I think. But, he was the smallest person in his class. He's now kind of 6'1", 15 stone and about 10% body fat. And he did it through going to the gym, the same gym actually where I'm going. That's why I'm going to lift, because Angus recommended it. And I remember waiting for a bus with him, and the bus driver put down the dropped step because he thought Angus had serious mobility issues. And it was just because he'd done heavy squats the day before and couldn't move.
I'm sure he took that step though. I'd have taken it.
Well, I mean, last week was the first time I've had to walk downstairs backwards since I started weights again.
Nice.
Amazing.
Nice. Things are going in the right direction then.
Yeah, it's good.
I was going to say, is it all just strength training or do you do cardio as well? Because you're going to be cycling such a long way. Do you have to implement a bit of cardio?
I'm doing about 7 hours a week on the bike.
Okay.
On the days that I'm not weight training, which it's fine. I've got to say that we do 3 sessions in the weights. There's a heavy day, which is deadlift, squats, bench. We do something that we never used to do back in my day called functional fitness, where you lug things about that are awkwardly shaped and that kind of thing. And we do a core day. And by far the hardest for me is the core day.
Fuck, I hate core. I hate core work. It can go away.
I love shoving heavy weights about. I quite enjoy the strange things with medicine balls and all that kind of stuff. But core is just agony.
You see, I've been doing yoga for many years, and core stuff doesn't bother me. I can hold a plank for days thanks to yoga.
Also, my wife has been very serious about yoga for about 15 years now. And I think she's stronger than she was when she was a climber. Just her general fitness and her posture. She's a strong woman, and she's older than me. She's 61. And I genuinely think she's stronger than she was when she was 20.
Wouldn't surprise me. Yoga is amazing.
Yeah. I've tried it a couple of times, but I can't stop laughing. So
when is this trip planned for?
June next year, almost exactly a year from now.
Okay, well, it sounds amazing. Good luck with the next year's training. You're going to have to come on after you've done the trip and fill everybody in on how it went, if that's all right.
Well, I'll be podcasting the hell out of it, June.
Oh,
good.
Amazing.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Now, we've got to the most important part of the interview, and that is where we ask each guest that comes on to give us a song they want to add to the playlist we have on Spotify for this podcast. So something you like to train to, or something that inspires you. I thought you'd enjoy this question.
That's that music. Hummer by the Smashing Pumpkins.
Nice, good choice. Solid choice. We will add that to the playlist.
I'm very deeply into Queens of the Stone Age just now as well, actually, because we're going to see them in November. Angus picked up some tickets. And they are, I think Scott summed it up perfectly, my partner in the Velocast, where he said, on one of their albums, I can't remember which one, but he said, it makes you want to be in a band again. And of course, he'd been a proper rock star before he was a podcaster.
Yeah.
Signed for Sony and all sorts.
Wow.
But it's Hummer by the Smashing Pumpkins. That whole album, just gets me going every time. It's perfect training music.
Brilliant.
It is indeed. We will add it. Well, thank you very much for joining us, mate. If anybody wants to follow you, find you, or hassle you on social media, where can they look? Or can they look? Have you disappeared now?
No, they can look. I've ventured back onto Twitter. I can't actually remember what my Twitter handle is, but I shall see if I can find that for you.
We'll put it all in the show notes as well, won't we, James?
We'll put it in the show notes. Yeah, it's
Galloway W. John.
Galloway
Galloway
W. John.
W. John, because my first name's William, although I go by John. And I think it's the same on Instagram, actually. But Instagram is basically just pictures of the dog. So if you don't like border collies, I wouldn't bother with that.
I mean, she's beautiful, though. It's well worth a look, that Instagram account.
Yeah.
All animals are gorgeous. So yes, definitely follow that one.
And dogs are a coach as well. You know, there are days where you wouldn't leave the house if you didn't have a dog.
Exactly right. Yeah.
You know, great to run with.
Mm-hmm.
Although I hate running.
Well, John, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Good luck with everything in the next few months leading up to the big trip.
Good luck with the training.
And don't be a stranger. Keep in touch. And when you are on that trip, if you do want some company in Europe at some point, happy to come along. And we'll definitely talk to you afterwards and find out how it went.
I meant to swear at you, actually, because you made me ride a bike for the first time in about 10 years.
I did, didn't I? Yeah, I did.
When I went to Ricky, a triathlon course for you.
I asked you if I think I sent you the map and said, is there anything on this? Because it was very local to you. I said, is there anything on this course that I should worry about or know about? And little did I know that you were going to get your bike out and ride the entire course to recce it. And you came out with some good advice, because there was this big sort of concrete block in one of the middle of the roads that you warned us about. And that was treacherous.
Yeah, well, I don't think I could walk for about 2 days after that. So thanks, James. Literally the first time I'd thrown my leg over a bike in about 10 years.
And you managed, 56 miles. So yeah, not too bad.
Yeah. Stubborn, that's it. Stubborn is what sums me up, actually.
Love it. All right, mate. Thanks very much.
The debrief.
The emphasis was correct, I feel.
Okay.
So what did you think of John?
John. Oh my goodness. What a legend. We've spoken to some really, really cool people because we're super lucky. But that John's amazing. What an amazing story. I can't believe he's cycling to China from the UK. That's mental. What a thing to do. But I love that for him. That is so cool.
Certainly. And what I enjoyed was that he is a very, very experienced podcaster. Mm-hmm. So that was a very easy and relaxed interview to do.
Did you fanboy? Because you're a big fanboy. So were you fanboying the whole time?
I think that's probably misuse of the English language. That I don't think that would apply. He's just he's someone who, as a podcaster myself, not quite as experienced, not quite as long as they were doing it. The quality of product that they used to put out and the content they put out is something that I aspire to. So nice. Got a lot of respect for that man.
Yeah, but I also think his story is really, really cool, because I know we talk a lot about people just starting off in their fitness journey, and the whole reason why we're here is to help people or maybe inspire people to take their first steps into the great outdoors and find fitness and stuff. But what I loved about John's story was that he had that fitness, and then because of accidents and injury and everything, which sounded absolutely horrendous,
and life and family, and,
that kind of fitness journey stopped, and now he's getting back into it at a little slightly later stage in life. And I think that is really, really interesting.
It is. And it's sort of the science is there now, and the knowledge is there now to really support and understand that as we get older, we can maintain fitness and activity and a certain level of being out there and doing things. You just have to go about it the right way, which is what he said in the interview, wasn't it? But that 4 years ago, he tried to come back, and he tried to come back as the man he remembered being when he was 40. Whereas this time around, he's taken that into account. He's got himself a coach, someone who understands where he is and where he wants to be. And he's laying that foundation so that when he does up the mileage on the bike, the strength is there for him to be able to do it. Because how important is strength training?
That strength training gong, I'm banging that. Yeah. No, I get it. Strength training is super important. Yeah, I know. No, but I think that was one of my biggest takeaways actually is when you're getting back into training is to not go back to who you had been, but to work with who you are now and be the best version of who you are now. I thought that was a really, really important message.
And that applies coming back from injury as well. You don't bounce straight back into where you were when you injured yourself. You gradually build it back up. And yeah, I really enjoyed that conversation. That was one of my favorite interviews we've had so far.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And I also loved how he was talking about how the more when you're getting back into it, the more challenging something is for you, either your training or the goal that you're setting yourself, or how high you're climbing, how fast you're cycling, whatever. The more difficult the challenge, the more rewarding it is at the end. I think that was a really important message as well.
I think it's a common theme that we're finding, eh?
Absolutely, yeah.
So should we go and have a coffee and talk about it?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's grab a coffee. The weekly roast. Is that it? Okay, so my coffee of choice this week is inspired by John's most favorite place to climb, and that was Chamonix, which isn't too far from where I live. So I popped across the Alps, went over to Chamonix, and headed to the Moody coffee roasters.
Well, that sounds nice.
Yeah, they're really friendly in there. And I picked up these beans. So they've got loads and loads of beans to choose from. And they get them from all over the world, and they actually roast them there on site, which is super cool. And the ones I chose are from Uganda.
Oof,
so I thought,
nice.
That was pretty cool. Yeah. And the reason why I picked this one, okay, hold on to your trousers, because the taste notes in this coffee are a little bit unusual. They have taste notes, right, of tropical fruit.
Nice. I'm sitting here drinking an espresso, and it is interestingly fruity.
It's a bit special, right? It's a little bit special.
Are you still getting that fruity note even though you've drowned it in oat milk?
I get all the notes. Oat milk doesn't drown stuff. Oat milk heightens stuff. But yeah, it's a fascinating cup of coffee. So I'm really glad I found these coffee roasters, and I'm super glad that they're in Chamonix, and we can shout out Moody and John at the same time. It's really cool.
There you go. We'll put the link in the show notes so you can go and check it out yourselves. And if you're in Chamonix, go and find them and get yourself coffee.
Find them. They're really friendly, and they'll sort you out a wicked cup of coffee.
Let's be honest. So it's time to be honest. Now, our roles are reversed a little bit this week, haven't they? Because I'm full of positivity and the joys of spring, even though we're actually in summer now.
And I've been a massive Debbie Downer. Yeah.
But for me, my let's be honest is that, I'm still not doing as much training as I'd like to be. I'm not able to get out and run yet, but I've been to see several physios. I've got a plan in place now, which is going to return me to running, which involves a rehab phase, running in parallel with some run walking. So I've done one session of rehab. I will do another session of rehab tomorrow, and I will actually get to go for a run walk on Monday morning, which I'm very excited about. So
it's amazing. I'm so excited.
I'm allowed to do it. I've had a proper diagnosis. They understand what the problem with the tendon is, and it's had a period of rest, and now I can start loading it. So my let's be honest is I'm up for it. I'm coming back. The comeback is real.
It's about fucking time. Well, mine has been a tough week. This is the penultimate week of term, and the thing is, right, in France where I live, there's a huge gap between the last holiday, which was in April, and the summer holiday, which is now in July. And it's non-stop. There's no half-term break or anything. So it's been like an 11 or 12-week term non-stop. It's been insane. Plus, I've had extra stuff like with my choir. I've done many concerts since April. And with added rehearsals. Repetition is the French word, sorry. With added rehearsals and stuff. I just feel like it's been a little bit non-stop. Yeah,
it's messed with your schedule a little bit, hasn't it?
A little bit, yeah. And this week, I think as well, because the end is so close. The actual summer holidays are so close. So yeah, it's been a draining week, with work and training and end of term and final year, end of year concerts and all sorts of stuff. Yeah,
I mean,
tired Bale.
you were talking the other day. You were saying that you felt like you dropped the ball when it comes to your training and your nutrition
Mm,
slightly.
yeah,
And I bounced back with that and saying, look, there's another way to look at that, and that is the fact that life has thrown a lot at you in the last few weeks. It's disrupted your schedule. It's made things more tired, more things to do, a bit more tired, less time in the day. But even even though that has been the case, you have still managed to do a fair amount of your training, if not
yeah.
almost all of it.
I've
So I
done
think
almost all of it. Yeah,
it's a positive rather than the negative.
yeah. I mean, I think the only thing the only thing I didn't do was my strength training.
Yeah,
Because
it's always
like
the first thing to drop out, isn't it?
it is like full honesty. If I've got too much going on and I have to drop some training, strength training will go first. I will always keep my runs. Like lots has to be heaped onto my shoulders for me to go, no, I'm not running today. You know, that the running and stuff will always be the last thing to go. And I think just in terms of mental health, I need to run.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think you should be pleased with how the. I know that it's felt you're tired, you're run down, you're stressed, but I think you should be pleased with how that you've handled the additional load on the rest of your
Yeah, and I
life
think
for the
like
last week or so.
yeah, and I think also if I am being honest or even just thoughtful, I think the fact that I am training has helped, even though I'm tired. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but I think even though I'm tired, because I'm training and I have a schedule for training, I think that's helped me with my mind. I think
Yeah,
if I weren't training, if I weren't doing anything and I was just at this busy period of the school year, I would just be frazzled nonstop. But having training to do and having ones to go out and do kind of helps me release that kind of not anxiety, but that kind of end of term stressed and frazzleness. It's a release. The training is a release as opposed to a constriction.
and it would have a double impact if you weren't doing it. Not only would you not be doing it, so you wouldn't get those endorphins, you wouldn't get that time outside, but then you also would get the negative impact that would have on your brain, where you'd be like, "Oh, I'm not doing my training," and
Yeah.
it would compound. And you know, so yeah, I think you should just be pleased and roll on.
Yes. Yeah. 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 I mean, I think even though I don't, I don't want to sound super duper negative or anything, but I think it's important to find in tough weeks. It's important to find the positive parts of those tough weeks. And for me, training is a really, really positive part of a tough week.
So shall we go and put some music on and forget about it?
Yeah. Turn it up.
That'll probably do, won't it?
Right. I'm going to ask you first because you always ask me first. So I'm going to jump in quickly before you have a chance to open your mouth and ask you, what is your song of choice for our Spotify playlist?
Well, my choice this week is inspired by the Glastonbury weekend, which has just gone by, and
Oh, yeah.
how much I enjoyed sitting in on one Saturday evening on my lounge, singing along to Guns N' Roses headlining on the Pyramid stage. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Axl Rose came to the party. His voice was fantastic. Slash was amazing. Duff was amazing. It was just a brilliant experience to see them doing what they do after all these years. 61-year-old Axl Rose running up and down the stage like
Amazing.
he's doing a bleep test. It was incredible, and one of my favorite tracks from their 1987 album Appetite for Destruction is Rocket Queen. And I'm going to put that in there because it's a brilliant track, and I love it to
Nice.
run to as well because it's got a kind of very regular synth-like beat in the background, and
Okay.
I do love a bit of that.
You do love a little bit of synth. So 1987 album. That's so old. Were you even born then?
Yes, of course I was.
Were you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I was 157 in 1987.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
That was my age.
Yeah. And that picture in your attic is showing its age every year.
It really, really is. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I used to love going to Glastonbury. That used to be my jam in the summer.
And I bet you were very good at it.
Yeah, I don't think I could do it now
No.
because Like there is a thing to be said these days for nice, clean toilets.
Oh, but things have changed.
Really?
You can go in the glamping area, and be in one of the posh tents.
That doesn't feel like Glastonbury though. Glastonbury for me is mud, mud and bad toiletry.
Yeah, and synthetic happiness. So,
Yeah.
what are you adding? What are you adding this
Oh
week?
yeah, it's my turn. Okay. So I am choosing a song by The Magic Sword, which is a band that you introduced me to. But they released an album in 2015, and there's a song. Actually, I love running to this whole album. It's a really, really good album to run to from start to finish if you're doing an hour run, which is what I did yesterday. And I ran to this whole album, and it was brilliant. It worked really, really well. But their number 4 track really kind of sums up my week this week. It's only short. It's only 2 minutes. And if it comes on when you're running a slightly dark trail in the woods, yeah, it's a little bit freaky, and that's why I love it. This is the track called Kill Them All. And it sums up my mental health for this entire week.
It's a brilliant album, and that track in itself is kind of a break from the beaty synth build up, and then you get this sort of return to form at the end of the track. It's a really strong break in the album. It's
a very I don't even know how to describe it, but yeah, it's a wicked track. It's quite atmospheric. It's quite dark. I dig it hard, man. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that is probably about it from us this week, isn't it?
I think that's a wrap up. Yeah.
I think that's about it. If you want to find out more, head to www.getoutinit.events. There are loads of info on there. You can sign up for the newsletter, download the personal development friend, book a free consultation, and discuss with us your health and fitness goals and the roadmap that we can help you plan to get there. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please do us a favor and go and leave a review on your podcatcher of choice, because it is incredibly useful for that algorithmic stuff.
Yes, and it makes us feel better. What can we say? Nice thing said about us makes us feel good.
Almost like the endorphins of going for a run.
It is. It's an endorphin rush. Give us an endorphin rush, please.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Thanks for hitting the trails with us this week. We'll meet you back here next Monday for more news, more views, more nature.
All the links for our socials are in the show notes. Find and follow us on Facebook, Insta, YouTube and Twitter. You can subscribe to our newsletter from our website for all the latest updates and camp plans. You get a fun free gift when you sign up.
Leave a review on your podcast app. It's really easy and really helps us out.
And if you've got any friends who could do with getting out in it, then bring them along to next week's outdoor adventure. We'd love to have you all with us.
Catch you next week. Cheerio.